Each personality type has 4 cognitive functions. Functions put language to the way they process information and make decisions. Each type is referred to by their top 2 functions. Internal functions are the ones you use in your head, and external functions are the ones you use to interact with the world around you. The Fine's functions are 1. Phi introverted feeling. Although it's referred to as feeling, Phi is not internal emotions, but rather values that come from within. Fines might experience a deep well of emotions, but this is not the root of Phi. It is a decision-making process that is very interested in determining its own moral code and what the Fine's gut instinct tells them is right, which is often based on how they would like to be treated themselves. They tend to be very considerate of others and may take a long time to mull over their own beliefs to make sure they seem right. The values refining process can take quite a bit of time and requires mental solitude. Phi generally puts authenticity in high esteem and is repulsed by anything that seems fabricated or shallow. Extroverted intuition. Is the main way Fines take in information. This means they use their intuition to find patterns, underlying principles, and ideas, and to form connections as they talk, write, or create. Flourishes when given new interesting concepts to consider and consistently seeks out new inspiration from the outside world. For the Fine, is paired with Phi and serves it in the sense that it comes after it in terms of preference. This means that will most often be used to explore values and ideals in all of their facets. Because is extroverted, it primarily works by engaging with outside sources. This may look like having discussions with others who are also open to exploring the possibilities of a topic or doing a lot of self-expression through writing or an art form. 3. C. Introverted sensing. C is the Fine's third function and it gives a sense of solidity to their Phi beliefs. C also makes the Phi-led internal world structured and detailed. When it comes to values that they have had adequate time to develop, they tend to have a solid sense of right and wrong. A lot of their perception in these cases is based on their personal experiences. This is because C places a high value on real-world experiences and its impressions of them. Fines store all the interesting experiences and information they gather in their mind in an organized way for future reference. 4. T. Extroverted thinking. T is the Fine's inferior function. This function may be their Achilles heel and is inherently not as strong as their other functions because their highest priority and focus is on Phi. T is a very logic-oriented way of problem solving. It is the side of them that naturally looks to find a better solution to a problem, improve the efficiency of a process, or critique and refine what is already in place. Fines generally prefer only to use T only when necessary, rather than to make all of their decisions. Overuse of an inferior function can be very draining and may be unhealthy when constantly given priority over other functions. Dominant function and core of the internal world. Introverted feeling. Phi dominant types are very warm and caring to those they are close to, especially because they may subconsciously believe that everyone has an inner world similar to theirs. However, they take a while to open up to people and aren't likely to approach someone unless that person strikes their interest in some way. Once they let someone into their world, they are likely to keep that connection open as long as harmony remains between the two. For example, if the other person shows themselves to be inauthentic or living out a strong opposition to a value the Fine holds, the Fine will retreat from the relationship. As long as those principles aren't violated, the Fine will likely be attached to that person for life, whether or not they see them regularly. Fines are masters of self-care and typically great at putting healthy boundaries in place. They are very empathetic people, so they see the needs of others and want to care for them. However, healthy Fines know that they cannot effectively care for others unless they first care for themselves. They know their limits and aren't usually afraid of saying no when they aren't able to do something or fit something into their lives. Phi differs from Phi, extroverted feeling, because Phi is focused externally and is constantly asking, how does the group feel about this? Whereas Phi is focused internally and is constantly asking, how do I feel about this? Once their own needs are met, Fines also tend to hone in on 1 or 2 significant relationships. They naturally take care of these people and treat them like family. These people could be a romantic partner, a best friend, etc. Fines are highly protective of their inner circle, feeling that those they share the intimate details of their persona with are in some ways part of themselves. They will not hesitate to defend themselves or those they are close to if they are attacked or threatened. Fines are extremely self-aware and spend a lot of time on self-reflection. They are very concerned with the depth and nuances of their value system and spend a large amount of their mental space clarifying, sifting, and refining their beliefs. This process can be very connected to deep emotions for Fines. They might find themselves laughing or crying at the beauty of a seemingly random object that has meaning to them, while bystanders who notice their reaction might be quite confused at their sudden outburst. For some finds, their emotions run so deep that there have to have been a lot of feelings building under the surface for quite some time before they will burst forth. They tend to seek out things, movies, books, etc. that will engage their emotions because following characters they care about through an emotional journey can be very rewarding. It's worth noting that when we talking about feeling, fire fei, as a cognitive function, we do not necessarily refer to emotions. Emotional experiences or expressions can be related to feeling, fei or fi, but they are not the root cause of the cognitive feeling. The root of fire fei boils down to a person's values, meaning what a person thinks is important based on their own conscience and the reasons they believe it's important. Then Fine's moral code is derived from what their conscience or gut instinct tells them is right, and they generally treat others the way they want to be treated. This phi value is not based in emotions, but neither does it need to be 100% logical. It is not overly concerned with the reason behind treating others fairly, it simply feels like the good and right thing to do because they themselves want to be treated fairly. The Fine's driving instinct is to achieve inner harmony by remaining true to themselves, their own values, and minimizing the influence that external factors, societal expectations, and maybe even the opinions of friends and family have on their values. They may love discussing or even debating their values with others as long as they are able to remain true to themselves while doing so. After a lengthy discussion, Fines need time by themselves to evaluate the conversation and consider what the other person said and how they might fit it into their value system. Fines find their own principles to be trustworthy and valuable and are inherently skeptical of others that try to impose on them. If something does not line up with their beliefs, they cannot act in accordance with it. To go against their own values is to cause inner discord, which Fines can't tolerate for long. Fines can get lost in their own world of trying to figure out what a stranger, who is sitting 20 feet away from them in a coffee shop, is thinking, how their day is going, what their life must be like, etc. They love people watching, but aren't typically interesting in getting up close and personal with most people as they feel pressured to react and respond appropriately in real interactions. They may even imagine a conversation with someone rather than actually speaking to them in real life, as imaginary people don't have demands or expectations of them. Fines tend to have an active imagination well into adulthood. Phi doms are very concerned with the story of behind various things. For example, they might see a large, sturdy tree and wonder how long it's been there and try to imagine the events it's been around for or who else sat in its shade, what wisdom might be attached to or inside of that tree, etc. They automatically look for meaning everywhere in books, movies, a passing remark from a friend, a special cup they like to use, or even why a certain tree was planted in a certain place. Fines tend to assign meaning to everything. Because they are so involved with and entangled in the depth and nuance of the meaning of everything and how the meaning of something relates to everything else, it can become incredibly captivated by the right idea or story. When something sparks their imagination or taps into an aspect of meaning that carries a lot of weight within Fine, they become entranced by the story or idea. The process of a story unfolding can be more meaningful to Fine than the sum of the story's parts. Second function and the core of the external world. Extroverted intuition. Fines have a very abstract way of looking at the world. Know is their second function and it makes them naturally oriented toward theories, patterns, and new ideas or principles. Fines have a world of theories that are swirling around at any given time and it's important for them to have time alone in order to develop them. Their best ideas will usually come when they have a sense of inner peace and enough inspiration. Many Fines find mindfulness, meditation, or another form of intentional relaxation to be useful for obtaining peace. Fines can find inspiration in almost anything because their Phi finds meaning in everything. As far as inspiration goes, learning interesting things, reading interesting books, taking a walk, or having a good conversation are all common stimuli. For the ideas that have had some time to percolate, they need to have places for output. Whether it's writing, speaking, teaching, building, designing, or something else, it's important to have a space to string together their ideas in a unique way. This can also help them to refine and perfect the expression of their ideas. While they may feel like they understand something fully in their head and they often make great teachers, they may not be as adept at explaining things to others without previous practice. Fines love novelty. They are always looking for a new shiny puzzle to solve or a new thing to learn about. They can get bored with something after reaching a basic level of competence. Even still, Fines often have one or two things that remain as a thread throughout their lives, the things that are most meaningful to them, which they have never found boring. It's likely they will eventually become an expert in these areas if they don't lapse for too long in their study or practice of them. Fines love considering ideas, possibilities, and the future. They are less concerned with what is, or the current moment. It can be tough for Fines to savor the moment and to celebrate their successes as they naturally look at what they need to do next. Third function and supporting role in the internal world. Introverted sensing. C is all about how real-world, five senses, seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, and smelling, experiences affect finds. They value their own experiences very highly and typically have a very good memory or catalog of details about their experiences that they deem important stored away. Finds value vastly different traditions or rituals from most people and demonstrate them in less obvious ways. To put it another way, their traditions are often not very traditional. At times get into a good daily rhythm that they unconsciously follow. It's easiest for them to keep going on this rhythm in their day-to-day life and it helps them feel more balanced. However, when something interrupts their rhythm, they might have trouble picking it up again once the interruption ends. Their internal world is pretty set and solid feeling as they enter adulthood. A lot of their basic values have been decided fairly early on and they fall back on these until new experiences, ideas, or realizations cause them to reevaluate certain values. They may consider themselves to be pretty open-minded. However, when faced with a new principle that they have no experience with, they will need a lot of time to themselves to evaluate their stance on the subject. Once they have had adequate time to consider the matter, even if they don't have it figured out 100%, they feel better knowing that they have reached some level of understanding within themselves. C is a very detail-oriented function that makes finds confident in using solutions that have worked in the past and they can use this to their advantage when necessary to stay organized in their job, at home, or in any hobby that requires detailed organization and quick solution problem solving. Finds tend to have a good balance when it comes to choosing between applying a new innovation and a previously successful solution. Last function and the supporting role of the internal world. Extroverted thinking. D is a process that allows finds to take in information from the real world, make quick decisions on what the most effective solution is, and put that solution into play right away. This is the weakest, Achilles' heel part of the find. Although it would be exhausting and unhealthy for them to rely on this aspect of themselves all the time, they can pull out their troubleshooting skills when necessary to get a job done effectively. While finds prefer to take their time on decision making, it isn't always possible or practical. In these situations, it's useful to have T so that they can make quick, in-the-moment decisions. Because they are relying on their gut instinct internal compass in the background, they can feel comfortable with their decision, even if they can't articulate a solid reason for it at the time. For example, if they have the sense that someone they see walking down the street could be harmful to them in some way, they don't have time to untangle why they have that feeling. They just know they don't feel safe next to this person and the best solution is to cross the street or take a detour in order to avoid them. In a lot of cases, T is the protector function of the find. When one of their values comes under attack, they have no problem using a direct, matter-of-fact T communication style to defend what they feel is right. When they feel so strongly about a subject that they know they must take action on it, they tap into this part of themselves that is powerful and commanding to take a stand for that what they believe is right. T can also be the part of finds that tells them to just pick something, a career, a hobby, an outfit, etc., and stick with it, at least for a short period of time. It's the smaller part of finds that pushes them to come to a conclusion and be decisive. If it was purely up to their phi, they would contemplate how they feel about it forever. And find who is forced to act out of this T problem-solving, critiquing side of their persona for a large portion of their time, for work or parenting, etc., is likely to become burnt out and might experience decision fatigue very quickly. They generally do best when they can allow someone else to take over the decision-making in at least part of their life. If they must make all the decisions in their job, and all the parenting decisions, and all the relationship decisions, etc., then when it comes time for simple, self-care decisions like deciding what to eat for dinner or what route to take home from work, they are already exhausted and will struggle to know what they want. Finds best use their T when there is already a system in place, as it is easiest for them to use the simplest version of T, critiquing and refining. When something is already in place and needs improvement, it can be easier to analyze it and see the solution. When starting from scratch, finds might have lots of ideas, but the act of putting systems and in structures of efficiency into place is harder for them. The phrase "be true to yourself" is never more appropriate than when you are trying to sum up what to take away from your personality type. If you have taken a Myers-Briggs test and you find yourself in the INFP category, understanding your function stack can help you relate more clearly with the world around you. You have to know yourself first. The best use of this knowledge is to create understanding and empathy for all personalities, including your own. People change as they grow older. Rather than putting yourself or the INFPs in your life in a box, understand who they are and let them grow and perceive life in their own ways. I hope that this was insightful. What are your thoughts? Tell us in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe and like this video so you will be up to date with all the new videos posted to our channel. Thank you.